When Moses was grown, it came to pass that he went out to his brethren, and looked at their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the second day, behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, Why are you striking your companion? Then he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? So Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, How is it that you have come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. So he said to his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. Then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses, and she bore him a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. Now it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we share together from Exodus chapter 2. The early life of Moses was a great-grandson of Levi, the 3rd son of Jacob, and had been born at a time when the Egyptians were oppressing the Israelites greatly. They had put them to forced labour as servants, and this labour continued for a very long period of time. So they were an oppressed people, and at a time when Pharaoh was seeking to kill all the boys, lest they grow up and become soldiers to fight against him. An intense period of opposition. But Moses had been saved, being placed in the river by his mother, and the princess coming and seeing the child and adopting Moses. So Moses became a prince in Egypt when the rest of his brethren were out as slaves of Egypt. As a prince, he had the opportunity of all the good things that Egypt had to offer. The education, military training, but there was always the continual opposition to him because not everyone in the court of Egypt approved of this Hebrew being treated as a prince. And Josephus has many details of the troubles that Moses faced in this period of time. And so Moses never forgot that although he was raised as a prince and had the privileges of a prince and the responsibilities of a prince, and in fact was a military commander in Egypt, yet he was born a Hebrew. And so we find that when he was about 40 years old, an age we learn later, he went out to investigate just what was happening to these Hebrew slaves of Egypt. He had evidently kept himself in the Egyptian court and not investigated much what was happening to them, although he always knew them. And here he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and he has compassion on the Hebrew. He says this is unjust. He has a sense of justice about him. Moral outrage, but we can easily criticize him for the way that he dealt with it. He didn't go and complain to Pharaoh. No, he secretly slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand, thinking no one can see, no one will know. But he went out a second day, and there were 2 Hebrew men fighting over something, and he challenged them, Why are you striking your companion? Why are you two brethren fighting? Surely you should be on the same side. You shouldn't be fighting against each other. Your enemy is the Egyptians, not one another. The one who was in the wrong, who was striking his brother, said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Here we find that Moses comes and tries to intervene on behalf of his people for the well-being of his people, and he is repudiated. Who made you a prince and a judge over us? In fact, this is a pattern that was seen throughout the scriptures. Joseph had been rejected by his brethren. David had been rejected by his brethren. And of course, Jesus was rejected by his brethren. It's surely a pattern. The ones that God appoints are those who are rejected by men. Well, his challenge was, Who gave you authority to speak to me? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? And Moses realized that what he had done the day before was known. And it didn't take long for Pharaoh to hear about it. And Pharaoh's patience at this point ran out, and he sought to kill Moses. Moses, up to this time, had behaved himself very well, but for him to kill an Egyptian, didn't matter what the Egyptian was doing, in defense of a Hebrew, was just too much. And so Moses fled for his life. He went back into the wilderness of the land of Midian, what we now call Saudi Arabia. Who is Midian? Well, Midian was one of the children of Abraham, and the people of Midian therefore had the knowledge of God passed down from Abraham, and God orchestrates it that Moses ends up making contact with the head of the family of Midian. He's called the priest of Midian. The role of the priest here, though, is not just a servant in the house of Midian. He's actually the head of the house of Midian. And he had 7 daughters. These people were shepherds, just as Abraham and Jacob and Isaac had all been shepherds. And they shared the land of Midian with other people who were not descendants of Abraham. And when they came to the well to water the flock, the other shepherds would drive them away and say, You people, you wait your turn. You're not allowed to have the water first. We're going to take the water. And so these women who were looking after the sheep were oppressed by the other shepherds who were there looking after the sheep. When Moses saw what was going on, though, he immediately came to their defense. He stood up to the men. He helped the women water their sheep. Here he is, a prince of Egypt, drawing water out of the well. He's not too proud to do that. And so they came home early that day. And their father said, How come you're so early? And they said, Well, there was an Egyptian there who delivered us from the hand of the shepherds. And he drew water for us and helped us water the flock. Reuel responded, Why have you left him out there? Call him. This was unusual behaviour for someone to be helpful, a stranger to help strangers. Of course, this shows that Moses, even at this stage, had the mind of God, being concerned for the oppressed. He'd been concerned for his oppressed brethren, and that had resulted in him being driven out of Egypt. And now he is concerned to act on behalf of these shepherd ladies caring for the sheep and watering the sheep. And so this is such unusual behaviour. Reuel, their father, sends, Call him, that he may eat bread. And so Moses was brought into Reuel's family and given one of the daughters as a wife, and she bears him a son, whom he calls Gershom, meaning I have been a stranger in a foreign land. He was feeling very much lost. He had been brought up in the court of Egypt, but he was no longer welcome there. He was not welcome among his own people, the Hebrews. So he had to come to the wilderness to find a place of acceptance. Here he learns the place of a shepherd. And here he has the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Abraham and the teaching of Abraham and the God of Abraham from his father-in-law.